Hey, everybody, welcome to this episode of Thinking Christian. I am excited today to have an old friend on the show. Ayanda Khumalo is a Christian recording artist and author, a radio host, and a worship pastor. He's got a lot going on. I love that. But we actually met when I was we were both at Moody Bible Institute. And so I've kept up with him on Instagram. He's got a new album that's coming out or has been released. He'll talk a little bit about that. And you should really check out his children's books. He's got a one I know is published, and you got another one coming out. So those are super cool. Ayanda, welcome to the program, man. How you doing?
Brother, I'm doing great. Apart from it's snowing outside. That, it's I'll say this. I know a lot of people have a lot of things to say when Christ comes again, a lot of questions. And I just have one question is, you took me from the sunny continent of Africa to the Midwest. Why? That's the only
Yeah.
question I'll have. Not about theology, not about salvation, none of that deep theological stuff about faith. Just that's the only question I'll have. No, I'm good. I'm good.
Dude, my wife and I've had that conversation so many times because, we've moved 9 times in our marriage. And we
Wow.
just keep moving within the Midwest. And we're like, what is the matter with us? Why can't we move somewhere like where it's nice weather just for a while at least? I mean, it's kind of nice to see the seasons change, but Hawaii sounds good.
Oh,
Uh,
I received that word. I received.
well, dude, tell us a little bit about what you got going on. So your new album is out or coming out?
It came out January 26th.
Came out January 26th. Very
Yeah,
cool.
there's a couple of things that have been happening. The album got released, and it's been a journey. In terms of where it came from, the origin story of that journey and recording
Yeah.
the album, and the various people who were part of it. Amazing group of people I got to work with to put it together and to share the music. Working on as you mentioned earlier, second kid's book. It's pretty much the trilogy. We're putting the whole trilogy together. And it's just the adventures of Aya, this little boy I won't give too much away. But if people have read the first book, it sets up the next two books. And we're just putting this whole thing together as just a trilogy, 3-part illustrated kids book. And we're looking at the end of 2024, spring 2025. And so we're excited about the creative team is really excited about putting that whole thing together. It's been going well. We've done the second chapter, done and dusted. We're editing the manuscript for the third chapter right now, and illustrations are the next phase. So that's been good. And I can officially say it now. Last week, signed a contract, renewed a show contract with Moody Radio's Urban Praise channel. So that will be a 3-hour show, 4 a.m. to 7 a.m. Central Standard Time in the USA. So they got me busy. I'm busy.
Yeah.
And then I get the privilege of serving the local body as well as a worship pastor here in Troy, Michigan. So, and a mutual friend. He's a senior pastor, Chris Brooks,
Yeah, Chris Brooks.
my
Yeah.
boss, but an amazing brother in the faith. And that's been it. That's been my life the past couple of months.
Very cool, man. Well, talk to us about, when you think about pulling together an album like you did, what's that process like? I mean, how did this go?
So I think I'll just start for me,
Yeah.
because everyone typically has there are a couple of 3 or 4 ways to do it. But for me, one of the biggest things was there's always a causation to what happened. And for me, the origin story was 2019. I lost my father at the end of the year.
Okay.
And the world didn't just shut down. And I'm halfway across the world from family.
Yeah.
So there was a journey of grief and processing. And a lot of the questions I was asking myself is, where do I place my trust? And at some point in that processing, the Lord just dropped that question through various people and in his word. Who do you place your trust in? And automatically I said, no, I place my trust in Jesus. And as a believer, that's, sometimes so cliche, you know, the Christian words to say. But it was actually that journey of, you know, I actually placed my trust in Jesus. The realization spiritually, internally, mentally, and emotionally. And once I landed there, it was this journey of, you know, mental health, healing, counseling, emotional health. Um, and at that point, I moved. I was in Chicago at that time. I moved to Troy, Michigan, to the role that I'm currently in, serving in the local body, local church. And I just started writing just concepts of, hey, the next project. I'm taking inspiration from different friends and people, and like this is the sound I'm looking for. I'm looking for a global sound, a fusion sound. And I kid you not, it was around April 2022. I started writing the project. I reached out to a good brother who's a co-producer, Ross Fishburne. He's produced a lot of projects. He's worked with Shane and Phil Wickham. And I just said to him, hey, I want to work on a 3-song EP. Extended play, that's what EP stands for. Just 3 songs, keep it short and simple. And I think I have the first song, and it'll take me a season, but not too long. So our goal was October 2022 to release this project.
Okay.
But lo and behold, got it out of plans. So I wrote the first song. It sat for like a day, and then I just hit this creative buzz. We wrote 8 songs in the space of 48 hours.
Wow.
And I was primarily, I typically write the melody and the lyrics, and then the rest of the team fleshes it out. But I was literally like 2 o'clock in the morning, like I'm spending time on the word, the lyrics are just rolling. I'll go to sleep. I'm voice memoing an idea and a melody. I go to sleep. 2 hours later, I'm waking up again. It's just rolling out, snowballing. So we have 8 songs done in terms of the idea. I
Yeah.
send everything across, and he initially is like, well, I thought we were going to do 3 songs. And then I said, well, let's just do 5, and we can put 3 on the shelf. So we brought in another co-producer. His name's Brandon B, based in Washington State on the West Coast, and amazing, just amazing how both are believers, both strong in the faith, both creative, out of the box type of producers. And he started in terms of some laying down the basic work for the project, and then he had to move houses, so he had to shift studio. So
Okay.
the October deadline was then shifted to May 23.
Okay.
So we were like, okay, I would rather have a project that's deep, done professionally, of the highest standard. We'll
Yeah.
take our time. We'll take our time.
Right. Right.
So come January 2023, we're behind on the deadline. In terms of the whole project, we've got 5 potentially we've started to work on, and then the Lord just nudging me. I need you to pull the other 3 off the shelf, put them in the project. And at the same time, I'm an independent artist, so I'm looking at numbers, budget, marketing. How
Right.
am I paying all these musicians, and how's this whole thing coming together? And I'm like, Lord, I don't have the funding to be doing an album with 8 songs. And God's like, well, it's my project. It's for my people. You just stay in your lane, do what you've called to do, and I'll take care of the rest. And one of the things, my philosophy behind all the projects I record is, you know, it's all for the work of one person coming to know Jesus in their faith. So all the work, the investment, the time, the relationships, it's worth that one person.
Yeah.
The second thing is we wanted to create music that a non-believer would want to play. They may not agree with the gospel message, but they love the music.
Yeah.
And then we wanted it to be Christocentric, theologically sound, biblically based. So all those factors were always in everything, and the team bought into that. So March, we're rolling. We know the deadlines. You know, we're missing the deadline. And then I said, okay, let's bump it a couple months. Let's do October, because we were just in a creative zone. We had pulled in a couple of other people, amazing people. My good friend who's a My music director when I'm on the road, Austin Deadman, he was on, he just finished being on the Hamilton tour as associate conductor, assistant conductor. So in between shows in the day, he's recording piano and pads and all the key stuff. Ross had tracked, he was on a family trip before he moved. So at least two of the songs, he was recording drums in his RV, which is this type of stuff never happens.
Right, right.
He's also recording bass. Brandon is playing electric guitar, and we've got a couple of people we're just pulling in this project. So we get to July, we've recorded 8 songs. We throw in another, and at the same time, I'm writing another song, and I was like, hey, we're going to factor this in. So we record all 9. We're pretty much at the back end, and I'm sitting there, and I was like, there's a song that is missing. Okay. That just kind of pulls this whole thing together. So lo and behold, I like to read hymns. I like to look at the lyrics, read about the heart behind why hymns were written, read about who the writer is and their experience and the story behind, origin story behind the hymn. And Joyful, Joyful, We Adore Thee pops up. And I was like, I love this. And lately, we just haven't been writing or releasing songs about joy. A lot of it's like ballads, 6/8, mellow, with some anthems, bigness to it, but there's nothing upbeat and joyful. So I'm looking at the lyrics for Joyful, Joyful, and I was like, I want to write a refrain, a chorus that responds to this whole thing. I write a refrain, and I'm playing it, and I was like, yes, this is the song. I send the idea to Ross, and I'm like, hey guys, I'm gonna throw this curveball in. It's different. It's funk based with some live brass, some Stevie Wonder key stuff, and they're like, we love it. Let's throw it in, and it ended up being like the last song of this whole project. Everything else is recorded.
Super cool.
And it was just like amazing. We were able to pull in a guy who plays brass, who actually played brass for the Coldplay X and Y album, and some guys in England. So it was just top professionals who came to the table and made it come alive creatively the way it just beyond what I was even thinking or imagining.
Yeah.
And it just encompasses what happened in 2019 when God was asking that question, and the songs in the project answer that question. And then it's now an encouragement to everyone else out there that our hope, our faith, our trust, our lives, our hearts are in Jesus. And so January 26th, it came out, and I'm excited. I'm very, very excited about it.
And where can folks get it, man? iTunes, that kind of stuff, Spotify, all the normal
digital
places.
All digital platforms. And the project is called In Jesus, Ayanda Khumalo. And it's all available there. Any place that people get the music.
I'm still old enough to remember going to get like singles tapes at Walmart or something. So, yeah.
Oh, I remember
no
CD.
No physical CDs for this one, just all digital, right?
And that's what
got to make life easier, right?
Most people, yes, and I think some people don't even know what a CD is, or have a player at home. So it's just like,
I was explaining to my daughters, they're getting ready to drive, and we're driving down the road, and I said, this whole texting and driving thing, I understand that's a distraction, but if you saw the way I drove and the things I did when I was trying to switch CDs and, mess around, I'm like, they should have had rules about that back then.
And physical maps and navigation systems.
Exactly. Yeah. You're juggling your map, you're getting a CD out, you're sticking it in the player. Like, yeah, you got your corded cell phone. It was a rough life back in the day. Hey, so I think it's cool. Like the creative process, the origin story is fantastic, man. And I mean, I think it's awesome that you took the time with it. Like your deadline didn't drive the end of this. I think that's like, it sort of speaks to what you're trying to do. You're not just trying to shove out work. You're really trying to respond to what God is telling you to do. And so I guess my question is, how do you think, because, you obviously put out the album,
Yep.
you lead worship at
Yep.
various places.
Yep.
How do you actually think about leading people into worship? And is it different when you're recording versus when you're live on stage? Like, talk a little bit about that.
Oh, that's a really great question. I think I see I see them just in two spaces.
Yeah.
And here's why. Because the end goal is to provide a moment or a space for people to engage with God.
Okay.
The beauty with anything recorded, you can continually kind of replay it
Yeah.
over and over and over again for whatever time length of period, a couple of years, couple of months, couple of days, couple of weeks. Those are the benefits to anything recorded. But my approach is in the same way I do live congregational context and studio, is I approach it the same way. My pattern is I'm always approaching like a producer. What do I want this to sound like? What's the message I'm trying to communicate? And every piece of the process and the parts that play into the process have to contribute to that message. It's the same approach in the studio. Everything has a role to play. Every note, there's a reason why we're playing that note. There's a reason why we're singing that note in the melody. There's a reason why they were playing the kick or the snare, the downbeat here. We're hitting the crash here. The different parts, the keys, the guitars, the
Yeah.
bass, the drums, percussion, brass. We have to be intentional about where we place that, because at the end of the day, the music has to support the message. People need to feel the message of the lyrics as well.
Yeah.
And that's good music. When I lead live, exact same thing. I think like a producer when I'm at a rehearsal and I'm playing with a band or my band. And we'll go into the weeds. We'll go into, hey, why are you playing that? Why did you play that note? What's the intention? Don't just throw something out there just for the sake. Think through everything you're doing, listen to everyone else, because once we're a cohesive team, we no longer we don't become a distraction. We become a bed that the lyrics and the message can actually land on top of. And it then carries the message a lot easier. We all know it when we go to a concert or worship and there's something audibly that doesn't sound right. We
Yeah.
typically cringe or lean our heads, and that becomes more of a distraction. In the same way, we approach it live leading congregational worship in the same way we try to do it in the studio. Studio, there's a little bit more grace because
Yeah.
you can cut, edit, redo over and over again to make it
Right.
perfect. But live, there isn't as much grace. But the goal is we rehearse as if we're going to be recording it live, so that in that moment, we're doing it with excellence. There's nothing perfect in this world apart from
Yeah.
Jesus.
Yeah.
But we know we're doing with a heart and an attitude and a perspective of we're going to do our best. We're going to rehearse. We're going to practice on our own as a team. So when we do it, it's done with the best energy, passion, and desire.
So let me throw this one at you then, because it's something that I was talking to my girls about. They're taking lit right now,
Yeah,
and I was kind of trying to help them understand how to go about reading literature well, and kind of what I think is good literature.
yeah.
And part of what I think is good literature, especially fiction, I wasn't thinking nonfiction, but fictional literature. I said I think fictional literature does its best work when it doesn't tell you exactly what it's trying to say.
Mm.
Right. The example I use, not a great example, but like there's a difference. I'm a big Stallone fan, so I love the Rambo and the Rocky
Yeah,
movies.
yeah,
But at the end of Rambo, his fourth movie, right, when he came back and did it when he's old,
yeah,
it ends with him just walking up his driveway to home.
yeah,
No words, no anything, no over speech or anything like that. But at the end of the last one, Rambo Last Blood, they actually have a voiceover. He's sitting on his porch in his rocking chair, and like they do the voiceover. And I was like, it kind of ruins the end for me,
yeah,
right? Because it's just too on the nose. Like now I know exactly what they wanted me to know, and there's
yeah,
no mystery left for me to figure out.
yeah.
Okay, so all that to say this. All right. When you're putting together, obviously in a live worship setting, you can talk, right? You can
Yeah.
talk in between songs. You can kind of give people little hints as to where you're going, maybe
Yeah.
part of what that message is. On an album, you even if you did it, there's no guarantee. I mean, it's like writing a book, right?
Yes.
First chapter should be like the second chapter, the second, they should lead into one another, but there's no guarantee people are actually going to read that.
Nope.
And so do you think of it like when you're putting the album together, obviously you've got some sort of a thematic approach and a broad message you want to pull together.
Yeah.
How do you think about that when you sort of have to know that people are going to experience that album in one shot pieces a lot of the time
Yes.
versus just sitting down and listening to the whole thing? Do you
And
do you
that's
plan for both? You know what I'm
yeah,
saying?
that's a great question. Yes, yes, I do, but not. I don't hold strongly to that because
Okay.
each song has to stand alone, but each song has its own particular message. It's like the subcategory within the main theme, and we
Okay.
can go down the rabbit hole in that area. So when you listen to, and that's why I would always encourage people, and I know it's work, but listen to the whole album.
Right.
Um, and for any artist worth their salt, and then when they put together an album, a really good musician, listen to the whole album because that's when you get the full picture. Um, when you listen to one song, you just get probably a quarter or a third or a tenth of this picture that they're this canvas that they've been painting. But you do factor it in when you put the project together. And for me, that's what I do. I
Okay.
always look at it, okay, there's always that thesis at the front end. Um, and then there's something that puts the bow on it right at the end. And the way we call it sequencing in the music industry is if you notice it, it's typically the best songs are on the front end. The ones that are like, man, the big hits, the songs that people typically that's what they listen to,
Yeah.
and they know that there are people who won't listen to the whole album. But their hope is if you get hooked on the first 3 or 4 songs and you're on a roll, you'll continue to
Yeah.
listen to the whole album.
Those carry through.
So little secret, some secrets for your listeners and those watching. I'm in it, so I'll say it, and it's you'll find it on Google or on the internet.
Sure. Yeah.
We typically release 1 or 2 singles before we release an album.
Okay.
And those 2 singles or single typically are on the front end of the album. So we're giving you a taste of what's to come. We play that song over the course of 2 to 3 months. We get you excited. You're like, wow, I love the song. So when we release the album, the first thing you're looking for is that single.
Okay.
And typically it's at the top, number 1, number 2, number 3, and maybe number 4.
Yeah.
And at that point, we got you, oh, okay, it's number 3. I need to listen. Let me listen to number 2, number 1, and number 2 to get to the song that I like about from this artist. And at that point, if you're liking the first 2, we've
Yeah.
got you in. And the attention span of today it's gone from a couple of minutes to like all they say now, the first 10 seconds of a song is make or break. And the first 10 seconds of a song of an album, number 1, is make or break, apart from that single they released. If we don't get people, and that's just industry right now in science, if I don't get the listener in the first 10 seconds, I've lost them.
You don't get them.
The likelihood of them ever listening to the rest of the project, it may be circumstantial because of a friend. We're like, man, you should have listened to this song.
Yeah.
So that's the science. I don't, in as much as it is the formula, I don't hold as much so strongly to that because, as I said earlier, whatever God chooses to do with the project, and He is doing stuff through it, He'll put it in front of the right people.
Do you see a lot of other artists doing this? Because I listen to a lot of music, right? I
Yeah,
follow different, I can think of a handful of albums that I would even want to listen the whole way through, right?
yeah,
Like sometimes it just feels like they're putting filler into it. But I would say one of the recent ones I've done, Tyler Childers put out a new album that was all, sort of Christian inspired songs. And it was
yeah.
just interesting to listen to. The whole arc of what he did was very cohesive,
Mm-hmm.
but I don't see a lot of artists does everybody do it this way? I
Yeah,
guess that's my question. Like, or do
yes.
they just focus on the big hitter, and then if they're like, whatever, we'll throw this one on.
Typically, no, a lot of artists are thinking through the whole story. And this is the thing, a lot of artists who write music as well,
Yeah,
or in the process of creating it or producing or co-producing, are deep thinkers. We
yeah,
what we typically are, and it, as a lot of people who are big name speakers are introverted. So they're typically deep thinkers. What people think when they're up front is like, well, that's how they are every day. And it's like, no,
yeah,
you're getting them for a snippet, and the rest of the time they're, I wouldn't say reclusive, but they're quiet. But as artists, a lot of the artists that people listen to, in church music, outside the church, a lot of them are quite reclusive people. So we're always thinking, we're always analyzing, we're always breaking down words and semantics, and why does this word, and if I use this word and this word, it's going to take away the meaning. And you may listen to it and think, oh, that's great, but the message of what I'm trying to communicate in this line gets lost when I take this away. It's like, hermeneutics, the Bible,
yeah.
each word matters.
Right.
And for those who are deep thinkers, when we're looking at the whole picture, that word in that song matters to the whole project.
Mm,
And I'm thinking about those things as well. I'm thinking,
yeah.
and it may not make sense, but when I'm constructing a clear, concise story over a whole project, that word does matter.
So when I want to just switch back to that initial
Yeah.
question, because I get what you do in the album then. So, obviously I go to church a good bit. I listen to a lot of worship singers, right?
Yeah.
And some of them are a little more, they're going to tell me what I'm supposed to be experiencing from up front. And other ones are gonna sort of pepper something in that makes me think.
Hmm.
And so how do you approach that? If you were going to play your album live at your church, let's say,
Yeah.
right? Would you add anything in between the songs? Like, how would you think about doing that? To sort of lead people through it in a way that helps them experience what you were thinking they would experience, or do you
Uh,
just sort of leave it ambiguous?
Honestly, I think, but this is the beauty. For me personally, I would leave it as is.
Yeah.
And here's why. Because in some of the mystery, that's where I think the soul and the mind and
Yeah.
emotions need to wrestle.
Yeah.
So I'm not going to explain everything. I'm not even going to explain. I'm going to sing it, and I'll break it just to,
Right. Just so it's not
lighten the
song after song
mood.
or whatever.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah, that
Yeah. Yeah.
type of stuff, yes. Once or twice the whole set of 10 songs. But I'm not going to over explain something. I may allude to, this song means so much to me. Here's
Sure.
why. There is one song, and it's, For Your Glory. The lyrics are, all my hurt, all my fears, all my shame and tears, you're using them all for your glory. So it's like the whole project's personal, but that one came from a place of that pain and hurt.
Yeah.
But I don't need to explain that, because I know there are other people who can testify to that in their own lives.
Yeah.
So the song needs to do the work for itself.
Yeah.
When someone starts explaining every song and giving you the deeper meaning,
Right.
I just honestly question, okay, so what did you write?
Right.
You know, yeah, did you take the time to shape it so that someone actually gets it, but is also challenged by it, and there's still a mystery to it that they need to process and wrestle with.
Yeah.
So, oh yeah, I'm for leaving it as it is. You need to wrestle with the lyrics, wrestle with the song.
Well, dude, I mean, I think that's cool. When I think about theology of worship, right?
Yep,
I mean, I don't know. I mean, I've read a few, but I think there is a big part of this that lands on the receiver,
yep,
right? So the person being led
yep,
would be the better way to say that.
yep.
The person being led, they've got to be actually engaged. They can't just be going through the motions, and it has to be something that they're thinking about and sort of trying to understand as they're doing it almost.
Mm,
There has to be some level of engagement, I would think, because the things that you're talking about, right? It's almost like catching an illusion in the biblical text. You referenced,
Yep.
hermeneutics.
Yep.
And it's like if you read through the Bible and you know the Bible, you'll pick up on these different allusions, like New Testament alludes back to the Old, or even the Old Testament
Yes.
alludes back to an earlier text or something like that. If you're just sort of a casual reader and you're just, sort of, lucky dipping in and reading a couple passages here and there, you miss those things.
Yep.
You actually have to be engaged and understand and like do the work in order to dig through that in the biblical text. And so, scholars help people with that, obviously,
Hmm.
and, writers and authors and all that kind of good stuff. But it seems to me that there's an analogy there to what the worship leader is really doing is they're trying to help people understand and catch these little nuances, not necessarily through explanation like a preacher
Hmm.
would or something like that,
Yep.
but from what you're saying, from the way you arrange the entire
Yes.
set is sort
Yes.
of how you're trying to get people to understand and lead them into these different experiences, understand and hear the message well, and kind of really participate in the worship. Is that a
Yeah.
fair summary?
Well, that is a very fair summary. I say two things, and I said this recently at a conference this past weekend I was in, and I spoke at. The notion or the statement we hear a lot, and I say that because I hear a lot from people who lead worship, musical
Yeah.
worship, congregational musical worship. We're here to usher in the presence of God. It sounds so nice. It's so unbiblical. Um, and here's why, because God says, when two or more are gathered, I am there.
Yeah.
So in no way am I
He's,
ushering in the presence of God. God will come when we invite him in. And you don't need me or Chris Tomlin or whoever it is for that to
sure.
happen. We are high priests unto the Lord. God says that. So those who are saved by grace through faith in Christ can invite the Lord in when he's at the door saying, hey, let me in. I'm here.
Yeah.
I want
Yeah.
to commune with you. So that notion, I'm throwing that out the window. The second thing is this, and I always say this to people who lead congregational gatherings of worship, and primarily my world is through song, is let the Holy Spirit and the Word do the work.
Mm.
Because at the end of the day, that's where the transformative thing happens. So when I'm
Yeah.
sitting there and I'm being led by someone who's led by the Spirit, and the songs we're singing are theologically sound, Christocentric, biblically based, I, the one who's partaking with you, have to go back and chew on those songs. Songs, good songs are sermons.
Yeah.
And I'm
Mm.
always encouraging, and I want to write that way, and I'm encouraging people when they lead is when you pick your songs, be intentional about the songs you pick, because a lot of people, and you know how it is today, most people don't remember the sermon. They may remember one point,
One point or yeah.
two, if you're lucky, but I'll tell you what they remember. They'll remember that song or the three songs, and they'll
Yeah.
be like, "Oh, I'm listening to this on radio. It's on my Spotify playlist." That's what they're consistently listening to. That's feeding them. So if in our congregational gatherings, if I'm picking songs that I know are a sermon and they're strong and solid theologically, they can be creative. The form of how the song goes is not even a conversation, but the content of what we're singing is weighty. And I'm not saying, we have to sing the passion in every song in every set. No, I'm not saying that.
Right. Right.
But you get what I'm saying. But if we're going to sing about grace, be right about what that subject is and the lyrics that you're writing and singing,
Yeah.
because that may be the only time they walk into church, and that could be the only song they'll take away from church, and something may happen later on. But they
Yeah.
know that, oh, I heard about grace, I heard about Jesus, or whatever subject matter was in the song, and it can point me back to scripture.
Yeah.
And the Holy Spirit can wrestle with the soul with the word in those songs.
Yeah.
So it's just and that's something that I most consistently remind people I talk to at conferences and the team here. A song is a sermon. So
Yeah.
treat a song like a sermon. Prepare your set like a pastor's preparing their sermon. You do that work. Let the work and the Spirit do the work for you as well.
Well, I'll say, man, I mean, I think this is a cool way to transition into the next topic. I want to talk a little
Yep.
bit about the children's book, but I'll just say
Yep.
this. I mean, I think, life in a sort of a X or Twitter or whatever we're calling it now, sort of culture, right, where things get real pithy real fast, right? Like you're getting these small packages and little units of like truth.
Yep.
And there's a gentleman, Henry Frankfurt, who wrote a book. I won't say the title, but it's on bull, uh,
Yep.
and it's a philosophy book. And what he argues is that there's a lot that's going on that the truth doesn't really matter anymore. It's
Mm.
all about something being catchy.
Yep.
Can I make it relevant for you in the moment? And if it's true, if it's false, it doesn't really matter. It just has to capture your attention. It has to be now, I have to make it important to you, whether it's true or false.
Mm.
And that's the aim of it. And so, I mean, I love the way you're approaching that as saying, yeah, the song should be, it shouldn't be like a dirge where nobody wants to listen to it,
Yep.
right? But in its catchiness, it can't sacrifice truth because
Yes.
at the end of the day, the sort of hook of it, if it's going to stick with people, you actually want it to be true,
Yes. Yep.
right? And that's a really difficult thing to do, I think. And the reason I think it kind of pivots us into the children's book, I saw at least an early version of your children's book,
Yep.
your first one. And what struck me was, this is a really difficult way to convey something true, right? I mean, I'm used to writing essays, right? Like really long, or books, like really long nonfiction, boring books that, you got to blow the dust off of and that kind of thing. It's almost easier to convey truth that way. You can be extremely complex. You can dive into detail. You can, you know what I'm saying? Like you
Yep.
can really drill into it and give it all this nuance and all this detail. Now, sometimes I suppose the truth could get lost in the details, but I do think that there's something simpler about just sort of putting a lot of words on a page and
Yep.
explaining something as opposed to pulling that back out, understanding the truth of something, and then telling a story about it. And so, talk to me a little bit about your process. Like, for one, why did you do the children's book? And then just a little bit about the process of how you thought about doing
Yep.
it.
Oh, so I think the book also came. I will say this: like 2019 was one of those years
Yeah.
being in, and I think what triggered it for me was it was a process of one, post my dad passing away, two, a good brother was in a really tough car accident that he's come out of. There's some physical things he needs to deal with for the rest of his life, and I was in the middle of that as well with a couple of other friends. Um, but there was a lot of trauma and grief going
Yeah.
on. And after counseling, I was going to write a book. I was with the creative team, and I was like, I felt, man, I want to write a book on worship. And that's in my mind. And I was like, man, and the creative team around me was like, no, we're hearing you talk a lot. We feel God's calling you to write a book on trauma, and we're seeing the little boy in you
Okay.
processing and dealing with this. We think you need to write a book on trauma to children. And I'm like, hold on, this is the first book. I'm not even an author. I'm not even going to go down the, I'm not even a parent yet. I don't even get involved in kids ministry. Like this is not happening.
Right.
And the team was like, no, we are sensing the Holy Spirit and we're seeing what God's doing in your heart. So I sat down with a couple of, Christian clinical psychologists, some of them and I just got perspectives.
Yeah.
Hey, this is where I feel God's calling me and the subject I need to write on. Give me counsel. They gave me counsel. I spoke to some authors and publishers in the industry and some people who were in the world. A good friend, she was VP of a big Christian publishing house, gave me consult and perspective. I spoke to some of the publishing houses, pitching and all that type of stuff, pitching,
Yeah.
manuscripts. And God was just like, the team was like, no, this is from your heart to them, to the
Yeah.
world and to kids. So the process was, I just took the little boy in me and put him down. And I did research about, when you write for children, especially between the ages of 3 and 10, you need to get to the point.
Yeah. Yeah.
You need to, you don't have 25 pages
No.
to hit the main. Literally in two pages, you need to present the character, present a situation, and then resolve the situation. And the thing with this was, it wasn't resolving a situation with a happy-go-lucky ending. If you
Yeah.
read the first book, and it's available on Amazon, Ayanda, it was a boy who experiences the death of his father, goes to a river, and it's flooded, can't get across to go home. And no, he's at home, he goes to school, hears the news his dad's passed away, and runs home. But on his way home, the river that he used to go fishing with his dad is flooded, so he can't get home. There's a storm, and he hears a whisper, and it's God talking to him. And God's just like, it's going to be okay. But in that message, it wasn't like, no, everything's, when you get home, your dad's going to be back and all that. It was just literally God reassuring everything's going to be okay. He gets back home and he tells his mom and siblings that he met God at the river, and God said it's going to be okay. And that's just the premise of the whole story.
Yeah.
And just the words of God saying it's going to be okay is what I wanted children to walk away with. And we do at the back end. There's just a short section for the child and whoever the guardian or parent is to actually ask a couple of questions and process this theme with the child. Because at the end of the day, one of the things I learned while talking to these counselors is this is a subject that we don't press into with little kids, trauma and grief. As heavy as it is, there are children who are experiencing trauma and grief for various reasons. And it's one way to say there is a God in heaven, God the Father. And he's not here to, take away the pain and restore what was taken away in that moment, but you actually have someone who's going to walk alongside you even through the tears and understands and feels. So in one way, it was a personal journey for me, because I was like, I don't want this to be this, personal project that I'm going to put out for everyone and it's mine. But God was like, no, I need you to write to children, and I need you to write this project to parents or guardians who are navigating this with children.
Yeah.
So that was the whole process was, getting down, writing, refining, and then sending it to an editor, contracted editor who sifted through everything, did the work, sent it back, then sent it to had to find an illustrator with the style that I wanted.
Right.
It took a good 8 months. But at the end, it is when you get it in physical copy. And so we did that. We did a coloring in version of the book, and we also translated it into Spanish.
Nice.
And partnered with a couple of children's ministries that deal with counseling for children. And we were able to get them copies, because they also recognized, man, this is such a great tool. It's simple, it's short and sweet, but it helps not just the child processes it, but it helps them walk along someone older to help them think through it and process and ask questions.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Man, I mean, I remember, like I said, I remember seeing the early version. I really liked it. And I think it's awesome that you listen to your creative team. I mean, it's I usually get the opposite feedback. It's like, oh, I think I like to write a book for children, and my wife's like, no, you shouldn't.
No.
So I think it's awesome, and dude, just multifaceted, multi-talented. It's been awesome to talk with you again. What do you have coming up? I mean, we'll put the album and the book in the show notes so people can link out and buy those, and I'd really recommend people check it out. What do you got coming up that you want to kind of leave people with?
So, yeah, I can share this. So working with, partnership, an amazing feature with Shane and Shane. They have a little surprise coming up for Easter. So I'm excited to be part of that as well.
Nice.
that's just been a joy to get to be a part of. And then you're getting the first scoop. This is the first scoop. I'll say it here for everyone. I've been brought on board to be a creative consultant for a new Christian clothing label. It's called IJ Gear, In Jesus Gear. They're based in the USA and Europe. So they're the ones that actually created like my merch for this album. And also we're doing sneakers. So everything's literally ready to go. The website's there. They're about to do they've been doing a soft launch testing, and I've been able to be part of that creative process with them and kind of just give direction creatively through just all the stuff that they're creating and the sneaker designs. So it's been exciting. So that's a first. You're getting it right here.
That's awesome.
With you. So those are kind of the things coming up, and I think just pushing, continue just to share the album. That's out. But yeah, those are a couple of things that are in the pipeline. Yeah,
that's pretty sweet, man. You're keeping busy. I love it. Well, we'll have a lot of this information in the show notes, and obviously you've got a website, so we'll put that there too. What's the website again? Just to make sure we get it right.
www.theakmusic.
akmusic.
Yeah, akmusic.com. Right? Yeah.
Very cool. All right, man. Well, it's been awesome catching up with you. Thanks so much for being on, and thanks for everything you do. Really cool to see. I mean, we knew each other back in the day, sort of at Moody, and so it's fantastic to see everything you've done. I mean, I got to watch you in worship for free. I didn't have to pay for it, so I have a feeling next time I come, I'm gonna have to pay for it or something. But
listen,
I'm glad
I'll get you a discount. I'll get you
thanks. Well, very cool, bro. Well, I appreciate you spending this time with me. And hey, listeners, go check out everything that Ayanda has going on here. We'll put all this stuff in the show notes, but I'd encourage you to check out his music, check out his book, and just watch for everything else he's doing, and follow him on his website. So take care, and we'll catch you on the next episode. Thanks, everybody.